Hi, I'm Karen. Welcome to Texas Farmstead Living. On today's video, we are going to show you what to do with freezer meat when the electricity goes out. If you are like us, we really like to keep a lot of meat in our freezers. With that, we always have to, we have to check on them daily to make sure the electricity and that everything's working properly. But there is a chance that the electricity could go off. And so we feel like it is very important, and we also share that with our beef customers, to have a backup plan. We're not scared, but we just want to be prepared. We feel like that it is a good idea, not only that there's a threat that you could ever lose electricity to weather. We did in our Texas freeze lose electricity, but also it's just a good idea for self-reliance to not depend on someone else, for 100% of your food. So if we, did see we were losing electricity, we have a great plan in place that doesn't take too much money to put together, and we want to share that with you today. We have three main topics that we want to share. The first one is Mr. Roofer is going to go over the equipment and show you how he set everything up. The second topic is I'm going to go over with you how you can plan, like how many jars you'll need, some information about canners, how you plan pounds of meat, turn that into canned meat. So the method that we're using is pressure canning. Topic 3 is we did make some mistakes and we want to share those with you. So I'm going to share the mistakes and some tips that will help you get all of your meat safely canned if you lost electricity.
Yeah, when the electricity goes off, first thing you need to do is cover your freezers. Keep any excess air from leaking out the top. Keep it cold, especially in the summer. That'd be a tough time to work on all this in the summer. I have 30 or 40 gallons of premium gasoline with some Stay-Built additive in them. I want it to last 6 months or a year. I rotate them around and use them with my car and then get some fresh. I bought this generator a number of years ago. It's a RS 5500 Generac. I wanted it big enough to run our RV or a water well or a number of appliances at one time. So it works really good. I've got our electric cords are hanging up in a very easy location to get to. And it always starts. I check on it every once in a while, run it a little bit. And right here, I'm just going to double check the generator, make sure it's putting out 110 volts. I don't want to mess up my freezer on a test run, but it works good. Also, you don't have to worry about running that generator constantly. You can turn it on, turn it off, just monitor your freezer to make sure it's still freezing. That you can conserve gasoline that way and run it a whole lot longer. There's a wet stick on top of that butane tank that hose is connected to. Of course, I leave it off all the time and only turn it off when you fill these little bottles. But I've been filling up propane tractors and all that stuff all my life, so I'm kind of used to filling bottles and filling tractors. So it's pretty easy. But we wanted all this infrastructure to be ready at a moment's notice. It's been there a number of years. I'd have a propane person teach you a little bit before you try to do it yourself. And we also got a couple of windmills on the place and an overhead tower that I built and installed a tower on top. So we've got our own water, don't need a electric well. This is some, thought we'd do our test samples on some sirloin roast. Let them try to thaw out over here for a while. And we have a little wood stove under our little covered patio or whatever you want to call it. And we're heating our water up on the little wood heater. Thought we'd try to do everything authentic, see how much time it takes and see where we're short or long at different intervals. But it seemed to heat up pretty well. We also purchased a Camp Chef Explorer propane heater, or stove rather, and it is very solid, and it went together super easy and super fast. And I checked all my outlets after hooking it up to make sure it wasn't anything leaking, with a little bit of soap and water, and no leaks. And thought we'd rinse our jars a little bit first. I don't guess you have to, but that pressure cooker is going to cook everything off that needs to be off. We did all this outside, but I'm gonna put those jars in that box to make sure I don't chip anything on taking them in the house to pack them. we're really not teaching anybody how to pressure cook or can. We're just trying to show you what to do when you don't have electricity to do it. And it seems to work just fine. I'm just feeling of the edges to make sure I tighten the pot down evenly all the way around, and it worked just fine. Didn't have a leak. That cooker seemed to work between medium and low. Took us a little while to adjust it. As you see, it got dark on us. Karen's using one inside. We have a propane stove inside, so we can light it without electricity. Works good.
I want to share with you how I went about planning for our freezer meat. The first thing I did is I bought All-American pressure canners. I bought 2 large ones and a smaller one. So they come with booklets, and right inside, and you need to read up and get very familiar with how to can, even if you don't plan on doing it right now. Just so that if something happens, you are not, panicking. But right here it has all of the different names or the numbers of the pressure canners. And I put a star, and it tells me exactly how many pints and quarts that my canner will hold. For instance, this large one holds 19 pints. This is a pint, and 14 quarts. This is a quart. So we canned pints this weekend on our trial run, and 1 pint holds 1 pound of meat. If I had an emergency though, I would use quarts because they hold 2 pounds of meat. And the point is I'm trying to hurry and get everything canned so it won't ruin. So my plan to know how many jars that I will need to buy and have waiting in case that I need them is, most of you that have a lot of meat in your freezer, you kind of know how you packaged it. So I went back to my cut sheet, and I knew that most of my packages, like my roast, I had cut in 3 pounds. So I kind of know about how many pounds of beef that I have. So when I picked up the beef, I counted the pounds, and I knew what my take-home beef was. So I kind of know, minus the percent of bone loss, of the amount, how many pounds I have to can. But a good place to start is your cut sheet if you use a butcher. Or, I guess you could, if you butchered yourself, you just could kind of, you just would count packages and kind of estimate how many pounds per package. But it's just a guess, but I have jars waiting in case I need them. So they're just in stacks. They're actually not opened because I'll just wait and wash them if I do need them. A very important part of this process is how to store your canned meat. So after you get it out of the canner, this is, out of the canner, it's all cool, is you can put it in a box. Your jars come in a box like this, which works great, and you can just, put them in, but you want to make sure that you put the date. That is very important. And you want to make sure that you put what kind of meat it is. In this case, this is venison. My son canned about 25 pounds of venison the same day that we shot this video. So you want to put the type of meat, and you want to put the date. Very important, because you will forget. So this box is what comes with jars. But my favorite, and I use this all the time. These boxes are from Uline, and they're very, very sturdy. They hold a dozen jars, so I will just put them in. Now I do not store with the rings. There's a couple of reasons. One, they'll rust on there, and then when you make a complete mess when you open them, and if you tighten them too tightly, it can pop off your seal. So I guess at this point, you know, what I'm going to do right now for these are my sons. So I'm going to pack them in here, and I'm just going to lay the ring just like right on top. But you pack them, and they cannot, see, there is a really good spacer to keep them from hitting together. So then we would pack our jars. I have the boxes for the quarts as well. And then we would label the boxes, and we would stack them in a very safe place. And remember, they can freeze. So if you have a basement or a cellar, that's even better. I do not. So I would have to, I guess, my plan is I have a wood cook stove, as I would stack all the boxes in close proximity to that wood cook stove. Now I want to talk about some of the mistakes that we made. One is we're so used to having electricity that we did not even take notice of the time of day. Now it's in the winter and it gets dark about 5:30. Well, if it gets dark, canning with a pressure canner is extremely dangerous. So we ran out of daylight while our canner was still processing. So we will, in our whole setup and our equipment, I guess, checklist, we will have, or you know, that we have a lantern that we can get our hands on real easily that will be over the camp or the propane cooker. So that was one mistake. And the second one is I really had not thought about how long it took for these canners to cool down, and for the pressure has to go to zero before you can open them. And I don't like to open them until my jars are pretty cool. So I really can only do 2 batches a day. So I kind of wanted to share with you some of the numbers, you know, like what I'm looking at. So just say you got a beef done and you have 300 pounds of meat. So my timeline is based on my propane, you know, that I have in storage, or my gasoline for my generator is 3 days. I'm giving myself 3 days to get my meat canned, my broth made, and I do have a freezer full of peaches and blackberries. So I've got to get all that done in 3 days. So I figure I can do 2 batches a day with the 3 canners that I have, and I'm sure we would probably have some help. But based on doing pints, and the reason that, you know, we did pints this time is because we travel with these, and this is our food on the go, and it's just a good size. If you have a large family, then a quart size, but it's really too big for us, and my son that camps, it's too big for him. But anyway, in an emergency, we probably would go with a lot of quarts. But we're going to use pints for an example. So I have 2 large canners, and I can get about 18 pints, even though it says 19. This holds 10, so I can do 46 pints with each batch. Each jar, each pint, remember, is 1 pound of meat. So that's 46 pounds of meat, and I can do that twice a day. So I can do 92 pounds of meat a day. Another little tip when you're canning meat is to go ahead and practice and figure out what setting on your stove works best with your pressure canner to maintain the pressure that you need to safely can your meat. I wanted to show you this because I think this is going to come in handy if I ever need it. I keep a bin in my storage area. It's just full of all my canning things. It's all in one place. Everyone knows where it is. If I send my husband to get it, there's no confusing, but it's just everything you need to can, all the lids, all the funnels. So I think it would make your life a lot less stressful if you just get a bin and get everything in one spot. I wanted to share with you a Bible verse that I think is relevant to what we learned today about taking care of our freezer beef if we lost electricity. Because like I said earlier, it's not that I'm scared of the grid going down. It's that I think it's important that I take responsibility for my livelihood best I can. It's really hard at this day and time. So I thought this Bible verse was really relevant. It is Matthew 25. We've all heard it. It's the parable of the 10 virgins. At that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps, but did not take any oil with them. The wise ones, however, took oil in their jars along with their lamps. The bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all had become drowsy and fell asleep. So you can go in your Bible and finish reading this parable, but I really, it's difficult, and I can say that I'm not 100% there. But since 1998, my goal is to take care best I can of my family and my livelihood. If taking away my electricity means that it could cause loss of life, then I really want to do all I can to make sure that doesn't happen. And I know it's possible because I live in the Texas Hill Country where the German pioneers settled. And I do know that they thrived and did very well living here without electricity. We just taught you how to do pressure canning with meat, but the old timers, what they told me that they did is, and I am definitely not recommending this, but they all had cellars, and the German culture is they really raised a lot of hogs and had pork, is they would cook, the sausages or dry sausages or even some beef, and they had crocks, and they would submerge it in lard. They pour hot lard over the cooked meat, and it would seal it, so it would be anaerobic. And when I first moved here, there were a lot of people that grew up with that was their way they preserve their meat, or they would put it in a canning jar and pour hot lard over it and then put it down in the cellar. And Mr. Roofer's family did that, but that was a little bit before the 50s, and so he doesn't quite remember that. He saw the cellar. So there's a little story from the Texas Hill Country. Please make a plan. It is so important, and I hope this video helped you. From our Texas Hill Country farmstead to you, have a blessed day, and we will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.